All right, let's get started. All right, so we're going to jump right into looking at the investigation setup. So I'm going to change my camera view. You can see that we have these two sensors. These are the new wireless temperature sensors with display. We'll talk more about them in depth, but this is a heating lab, so we need to get it started as soon as possible. We can see that both of them are reading 20. This one is 21.18 degrees Celsius, and this one is 21.07 degrees Celsius, so roughly the same. They're set up on this template just to make sure that they are evenly located to our heating source. At the tips of them, we have black masking tape and white masking tape, as seen here, just over the probe end of our sensors. This is a 125 watt heat lamp, so it will generate a fair amount of heat here relatively quickly. And I'm going ahead and turn this on and get us started. All right, while that is heating up, let's go ahead and talk more about the sensor itself, and we'll check back in to our investigation here in a moment. So you can see this is our new wireless temperature sensor. Our main difference, of course, is the display. So let's go ahead and turn it on by holding the power button. Notice that when we turn it on, the display immediately pops up. It blinked red here for a moment to show that we had pressed our power button. And you might be able to see that our Bluetooth button here is blinking red. You might have seen in that quick view that it is a USB-C charging. So it's not the micro USB of some of our other sensors, but is changed to the newer USB-C. So some things that you might recognize or have used with other sensors is the remote logging. So just to give us some time while we let our investigation heat up, we're going to do some remote logging with this device here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a new instance of SparkView. Notice that we have our manual entry, sensor data, which is generally, if you are recording live data, one of the buttons you select most often, and our remote logging button. So I'm going to select remote logging. Notice that the sensor, because it is close and on, is the first one to show up. We can tell that it is our sensor because of the 6-digit code seen here, both on the screen as well as on our sensor. I'm going to select our sensor to connect to it. We have all different settings. The most important one, or one of the most important ones, is our sample rate. So right now it's set at 2 Hertz. We can go as high as 10 Hertz, but this will only give us an hour and 35 minutes of memory. Notice as we lower our sample rate, the memory extends to quite some time. So if we say only retrieve data every hour, this is the amount of memory we have. However, the actual duration may be limited by the battery life of each individual device. I don't need it to go every hour. I think 2 Hertz was absolutely a good setting. So now it is ready to collect data. It should be blinking yellow. Again, this may be visible or may not be visible for each over the video. Notice that the display is in Celsius. Whether you are recording data, it's just on, or you're remote logging, you can still change what it's in. It goes both Celsius, now it is in degrees Fahrenheit, as well as in Kelvin. So you change that by just double clicking quickly on the power button. So you can scroll through all of these different options. So I'm just going to hold the tip of the probe to change the temperature so that we have something a little more interesting than just the room temperature to read when we look at our data. Some uses for this, right? It's a temperature sensor. We can place it many places. Outside, inside, it goes down to negative 40 degrees Celsius and up to 125 degrees Celsius. And while I wouldn't place it out in the pouring rain, it is splash resistant, so it is safe in most scenarios. All right, that should be enough data. So I'm going to go back into SparkView and go into remote logging. Sometimes it may not show up here if it's gone to sleep because it will try to turn off its Bluetooth to conserve energy, and you can just turn it back on by clicking on the power button. So I'm going to select my data to download. I think I did just set it off. There we go. So I'm going to select my temperature sensor to connect and download the data from that remote logging session. And just turn it off and back on again. Apparently I've been playing with it too much this morning. There we go. All right. I'm going to choose to delete the data from the sensor after the download, but you can leave it on, although it will not do remote logging if there is data currently on it. So I'm going to download the data and just see it displayed as a graph. So we can see very easily that this is when it was sitting on the table at room temperature. This is when I grabbed it and it started to heat up, and when I let go of it. So hopefully you can see the possible applications inside your classroom for this device and the remote logging that you can do. So let's take a quick glance back to our previous setup. I'm going to change my camera now so I don't forget. So both of them have heated up, but as you would imagine, and most students can probably predict, the white masking tape has only heated up to 30.22 degrees Celsius, where the black one has increased temperature by more to 36.3 degrees Celsius. I think I'm going through my material even faster than I thought I was going to. Some extensions that we could do for this activity, right? You could take it outside and use direct sunlight, see how that compares to our heat lamp, which, while has visible light, mostly focuses on its infrared. You could compare different bulbs, have students look at the difference between, say, the heat lamp, standard incandescent, or LED bulbs to see how, while they all produce visible light, they do not all have the same heating properties. You can additionally look at different tape colors and see how different tapes and tape colors might absorb differently based on the color of each object. And these can, of course, transfer to other ideas such as design task if you're looking at the albedo of buildings and transfer that to earth sciences, as well as why we might prefer LED lights for energy saving purposes versus standard incandescents. Now, we can obviously use the display to visually check the temperature of the device at any given moment. However, at the same time, we can always have SparkView running if we would like to see the temperature. So we can see here, and I need to change my setup really quick, but we can see that I have actually started this as soon as we started running the lab. I'm going to put them both onto one graph plot area so that we can see them better. However, you can see better. Oh, that's when I touched it. Yeah, there we go. And so a button that's really important when you are putting two points or two data onto a single graph, make sure that you keep your origins aligned. Otherwise, it can confuse students and make them assume that there are changes that are happening that are not really there. So hopefully it's clear to see which one is our black tape. It's this purple line, whereas our white tape is this green line. We've been running for almost 9 minutes, and I'm going to turn off the heat lamp, and we can think, how will this graph look as soon as we start the cooling portion? So I'm going to turn it off. And we could see immediately the temperature starts to drop. We didn't quite run it long enough to hit equilibrium for both of the tapes, but we got close enough. And obviously in your classroom, you can choose to run it longer if that works better for you. Notice that the rates of cooling are different because there's a larger temperature difference between the air temperature and the black masking tape as compared to the room temperature and the white masking tape. So you can also talk about that, how that heat transfer is different with your students based on the relative difference of the temperature between the two objects, these two objects being the tape and the air inside this room. So there's a lot of things you can do. It is a temperature sensor, but the display makes it easier for students of all ages, including younger students, to quickly read and take their data and learn about the world around them. Glenn, I went pretty fast. Were there any questions that I did not cover during this?
I've covered it in the Q&A. Kane, do you want to point out which version of SparkView you're running here? The PWA?
Oh, yeah, good point. For people who are familiar with SparkView, you might think, wait, did we not have 2 instances of SparkView running at a time? Yes, we did. The reason being, the SparkView that I showed you with the remote logging was the native SparkView app. However, what I had secretly running in the background was my Google Chrome and the SparkView PWA. So this is, you can have quite a few instances of these open. I don't recommend it because you might get confused about which sensor is connected to which instance. But this is a way you can have SparkView wherever you have an internet connection. So as many classrooms do, as mine did when I taught, Google Chromebooks are very common, and the PWA for SparkView works excellently inside Chromebooks. And it works in Chrome
and
Edge. Yeah, so it works in Chrome and Edge. Obviously, Chromebooks come with Chrome, so it works great in that. But yeah, thank you, Glenn, for pointing that out. Anything else I might have missed?
That's everything so far, but we invite questions in the Q&A panel if you have any remaining questions.
All right. I know this webinar was slated to be a little bit longer, but hopefully I've covered everything that was of note. And again, when I was teaching, I was never remiss to have something be shorter as long as I got the information I needed. So again, please, if you have any questions or things you would like me to show or cover, we'd love to do so. All right. Well, then, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully this was informative, talking about our new temperature sensor with display. Thank you again, and we hope to see you at any of our future webinars.